please rise. Call the meeting to order. Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you, everybody. Appreciate you being here. We have changed the agenda. I was at Portage City Hall just before. There's some significant things going on there, and Mayor Monta apologized that he will not be here, but they asked to find out the date of our next meeting and please put us on the schedule for the next one. So I thought it would. Yes, we will. The next step is to do the introductions. I'm George Topple, Union Township trustee and chairman of this wonderful committee. And
I'm Iman Ibrahim, planning manager here at NERC, and I'm staffing the economy and place committee with Dinner King. But she's not here today, she's on vacation.
I'm Joe Haney, the Porter County Commissioner and Executive Board Member here at NERC.
My name is Bob Rhodes, and I am on the board of directors for the Porter County Parks and Recreation.
I'm Jake McAvoy. I'm the superintendent for Porter County Parks and Recreation.
Dr. Larry, active the Porter County Parks.
Joe Wazalik, retired Chief Operating Officer for the Northwest Indiana Realtors and currently a contracted staff advisor.
John McElroy, the Porter County Surveyor.
David Wright, Gary Transit, and I'm going to ask my to the table even though I'm not voting.
yeah, come on up.
All right.
Selena Green, ERC fellow, nursing.
Candace Eklund, NERC staff.
Mary Stillwell, director of administration, nursing. Happy Luther.
Okay.
Tom Edwards, nursing staff.
Grace Bender, nursing.
Mitch Barlow and NERC.
Okay, and we're just finishing introductions right on time.
Eddie Fender, Northwest Indiana RDA.
Well, welcome everybody. Glad to see you all here today. First of all, we have the minutes of the last meeting on the back of your agenda. Has everyone had a chance to look at them? Or those that would like to look at them?
Motion to approve the minutes from last
Oh, okay, we have a
last
motion.
meeting.
And I guess I'll second that. So those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. The minutes are approved, and moving right along. We're the next item on the agenda is Brownfield redevelopment for Quantum Tech Business Attraction. Results and recommendations, Selena Green, NERC Economic Recovery Corps Fellow. And this is an informational presentation, which I've seen part of it, and I think you'll find it interesting. Take it away.
Thank you.
And
Good
welcome.
morning, everyone. Glad to be here again.
Christine, come on in. And introduce yourself. We just did introductions.
Christine Livingston, Indiana News Tourism.
Glad to see you. Yeah, Selena Green's making the presentation.
Okay. So thank you again for having me. This is just a summary presentation of some of the work that I've been doing as an Economic Recovery Corps Fellow, working with NERC for the past 2.5 years. Just as a reminder, the Economic Recovery Corps is a nationwide initiative led by the U.S. Economic Development Administration and also coordinated by IEDC, the International Economic Development Council, and it supports 65 fellows throughout the country who have fellows embedded with those organizations to work on long-term projects to enable their capacity to access federal funding and to unlock additional support for economic transformation in those communities. The state of Indiana has 3 fellows. I am one of them, and I've been working with NERC on brownfield redevelopment and quantum business attraction. The other 2 fellows are Eze Redwood, who's been working with the city of Gary on their arts district and downtown transformation, and then also Tracy Clark Jeffries, who's been working with Michigan City on their small business development and their vibrant Michigan City work. So we've had a robust investment from that program in the Northwest Indiana region, and we're really excited for what's been happening there. So I just want to share with you, my project, unlike the other 2, has been primarily research focused. The challenge when NERC applied for a fellow was that there have been long-standing vacant brownfields, and there's tremendous opportunity that could be unlocked by getting those brownfields activated, or finding out what the barriers to activation were for some of those sites, and also seeing the appropriateness of those sites for tech infrastructure, primarily for quantum business attraction, but as that is a new cluster that is emerging, are there other tech infrastructure projects that could be attracted or matched with brownfield sites? So my work was really centered around researching that, what are those barriers, what are some of the strategies, and how we can, 1, make the match, and 2, uncover other capacity challenges that might be barriers to that.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Was it the geographic area, was it for all 3 counties, or was it focused on Lake?
Focused on northern Lake County. So Gary, Hammond, East Chicago, and Lake Station. And again, these are the areas that have the most, largest brownfields, and some of the most, harder to convert brownfields in those regions. Also where the quantum fiber corridor has been located, and where there's been the most activity and proximity to the quantum sector that's been emerging in hub in Chicago. Other context is that there's been investment in Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin as a tech hub region, and so we're trying to further that. And in parallel to that, Northwest Indiana has also emerged as a data center market in the Midwest. So there have been billions in data center commitments, and then there are also new data centers that have broken ground. And so one of the questions that has come up is, why is there so much interest from data centers in farmlands as opposed to the brownfields, which are already zoned industrial and ripe for transformation? And among the challenges are the size of those brownfields. A number of them are hyperscalers who are looking for larger tracts of land, and the brownfield sites tend to be smaller and don't have as much of that footprint to expand over time. Also, there is proximity to residential areas as well, and so that tends to be a challenge as well. But what we know is that brownfield land can become a foundation for economic growth. It has power infrastructure already. We have some large sites, but maybe not hyperscale sites, but they are large enough for other micro and edge type of data centers and other quantum industry parks that could be there, labs that could be there, other types of tech infrastructure that could be there. There's also opportunity for community engagement with these communities, and also for job creation to replace some of the industries that have left over the years. So some of the deliverables and work that I've been doing is site profiles, also examining barriers to redevelopment, and among those barriers that we looked at have been, again, one is community engagement, community support. So engagement and support is a real need, and I'll touch on that a little bit later. Also, the ecosystem. There are a number of actors that have been trying to unite and corral the business community as well as local governments, and they've primarily been working in silos, and so there's a need for more ecosystem connection, as well as funders and land banks and developers to connect and really fill the gaps in terms of public finance and investment that's available for the pre-development costs. And then, of course, there might be some regional needs as well, policy needs as well, policy changes around code enforcement and around other areas that could either incentivize work in brownfields as opposed to, other, types of land that you may want to preserve, and also to disincentivize the speculators that have been holding land and not developing it. So what we're finding, of course, is that the land is an asset. It tends to scare people away, but there are incentives that we can offer and ways that we can make this land more attractive to the tech infrastructure and tech industries. The ecosystem is fragmented, but there are ways to convene and unite these organizations, and I think some of that work is already in motion, and communities need a seat at the table, but preferably before the deal. When waiting too late, that can cause conflict, and we're seeing that there's a lot of anxiety around these developments, and more education and more community engagement is needed. So among the recommendations is really filling the ecosystem gaps, particularly around the need for a brownfield-focused TDFI, and connecting new market tax credits to these sites and to redevelopment. And so there is work happening with the RDA, and the forum has also been working on that as well with the Ready Fund, but we're hoping that more can be done together. Some of the other example cities that I've looked at nationwide have, endowments even in the hundreds of millions of dollars to further large-scale brownfield redevelopment. So there really is sort of an all-hands-on-deck approach that is needed, and much larger amounts of money for pre-development than the regional CDFIs have been writing checks for. So there's definitely a need for more capital to the area. Building a case with power and really just communicating to communities how those power needs will be met for these tech infrastructure developments in a way that won't impact their own rates. There are cases to be made for that, and other communities have had reimbursements, bring your own power agreements, and other types of agreements that have been done, but that certainly needs to be communicated and organized better. And certainly a site pipeline. So I've been working on building inventory tools, but also tools to assist local communities for tracking brownfields ownership status, and also managing their status as far as code violations and other ways to keep properties either from revolving in and out of the tax sales and being available to speculators, and also tracking their ownership status as well. So among the tools and assets that are in development, one is just applied AI for small government capacity. One of the things we heard loud and clear is that for large tech infrastructure projects, it's really hard for local planning commissions and other commissions to really wrap their heads around these complex projects and to issue a sound decision that they can stand behind with sometimes a quick turnaround. So there are definitely tools to aid in local decision-making on tech infrastructure using the already existing sensible tools that NERC has developed. There's also tools for small government capacity and site status tracking and redevelopment pipeline management. So to get some of these properties unstuck, move them into development status or see what the barriers are and get those checklists or checklist requirements met so that they can be certified as shovel ready and earn that certification. And certainly targeting properties that are the overlap of opportunity zones and ready eligibility. So in addition to the research done, this fellowship also enabled my own personal development and development of professionals at NERC, and then also expanding the network or connection of NERC to similar peers nationwide who are working on similar issues. As I mentioned, there are 65 communities across the country who are all dealing with similar issues. And so it's been really great to connect with all of them. Both hosts and myself as a fellow have had those connections on a monthly basis. and mostly virtually, but also in person. And there are also tech capabilities that have been offered as well. So for myself, and then also, again, peers in the ERC network who have AI capabilities, who've been able to share different tools and research that they've developed. So that's been really rich resources that have been made available to NERC through the fellowship. And it's been really a pleasure to get to know everyone and to bring that information and resources back here. So again, we know brownfields aren't blight, they're infrastructure, but we have to build the system to unlock them. We have to have more coordination amongst the regional bodies. We have to have greater investment. We have to get communities on board and really communicate the needs and offer the tools and information that are accessible for people to make sound decisions on very complex projects. And then also, of course, really utilize the tools that are available to help us manage the information, manage these projects, and move them forward. One last thing, as we are closing out, there is usually a site visit that's done from the ERC and their partners. And so coming up on Monday, we're hosting a lunch and learn, Smart Decisions for a Changing Economy. And some of the economic recovery for national partners, National League of Cities, ICMA, and NATO, National Association of Development Organizations. They're going to be coming here from different parts of the country and sharing their expertise on helping local leaders evaluate data centers and other technology infrastructure projects. So again, this highlights some of the works that I've been doing. I'll go more in depth in that. And then also hear from national partners and some of the tools that they have available on their websites, and also for member organizations to access for those who really want to take a deep dive into this topic. So I encourage you all to be there. It'll be here. Lunch will be provided, and looking forward to seeing you.
Go over the date and time again for me, please.
Date and time is this Monday, July 13th from 12 to 2, and that will be here.
It's in the bottom, too small.
Sorry.
Oh, okay.
It's in the bottom.
Yeah.
Oh, I see it now.
And there is an RSVP link, but you can also just connect with myself or Kathy, and we can send you the link as well. I think it should be coming out by email to all of you and from NERC as well.
So everybody will get an email that's here.
Yes.
Excellent.
Questions or
In
comments?
your research, you indicated that the size of the brownfields is a limiting factor. So of all of the properties, again, primarily in Lake County, how many of them are large enough to actually be viable for a typical data center? Because I know when we talk about data centers, everybody thinks about Google and Amazon, and you think about what's going on over there, in St. Joseph County. So I guess the question is there really an opportunity because of the limitations of the size?
Yeah, so there is no one typical data center. There are data centers of different sizes and different types. So that's something that I'm going to be presenting on more in depth on Monday. But the hyperscalers are the ones that want the farms. And hyperscalers are, they want, over 1,000 acres, and they are building multiple facilities over, up to a decade or more. So they're really looking for thousands of acres. And there are other types of data centers that could match to the smaller footprints that we have. These are co-location, edge, or even micro data centers. And so there are also different types of data centers in terms of the type of power that they use, the type of cooling that they do, how they use water, etc. And so it's really about instead of reacting, doing outreach and being proactive in those industry bodies to attract the right type of data center if you want one. There are other types of developments you could attract, but if you wanted one, to attract the right type for the properties that you have. And right now, I think the region is primarily reactionary because I think land and the hyperscalers are the ones that are really, pushing forward in terms of their developments. But I think that industry is also realizing that instead of, incurring public wrath and trying to push forward with only one type of data center, to really think more creatively about how they can use smaller footprints. So there will be more, interest, I think, in the brownfields as it becomes more challenging to access the farmland, or as more decisions are made around the appropriate use of farmland. So I think it would be of interest for Northwest Indiana to be ready when those companies are saying, oh, make that pivot and that shift and realize that they need to do a different type of development.
There are some, if I may, there are some data center applications where they repurpose other buildings or acquire similar type businesses to bring them into that, because I know that there's, from the pushback that I receive locally, why can't we use the places that we already have? And that's the same thing that you're bringing up. I think there's basically 4 different types of data centers, and they run the gamut of purposes and sizes.
Exactly.
One other question. So, of these different types, in your research, have you found that any are more acceptable from a community standpoint than others? Because I know, like even here in Portage, we have a data center right across the street over here. Nobody even knows about it.
Right.
And it never had any public pushback that I'm aware of.
How many acres does it take up, Joe?
Well, that's what I'm saying. There's all these smaller ones. So is there any one type that has more public acceptance than another?
Selena, you had mentioned Columbus, Ohio in a previous presentation.
Sorry.
Columbus, Ohio, for being an example of
Yes.
something that has
Yeah.
worked successfully.
So I think it's primarily 2 things. One is that if you have the smaller data centers where they just look like another industrial building, and so there isn't as much pushback because people don't know what they are, and also because they're in an industrial park, so the disturbances, it's siting. It's the right siting for an industrial project, and it doesn't create the public disturbance that taking away or seemingly taking away farmland would create, because it's going where people expect industrial properties to go. Yeah.
And that's part of the problem. First of all, we tried to have one in South Porter County. I'm a farmer, didn't want it. And when they brought it before the commissioners, about 1,100 people there saying they didn't want it. Okay. So there's corridors here within Porter County that industrial parks, like the US 30 corridor, 20 and 12, that these things would, even up to the large one, would possibly be a possible fit. So the primary reason, I guess, what gets the farmers down that area upset is that the hyperscales are looking for a commitment from the county officials for an abatement. I believe one nearby county gave a 40-year abatement, and as long as I'm still on the county council, that's not happening. And so there are things that, like this here, should be made known to the general public, like Joe said. Portage's got one. Nobody knows about it because it's not taking up 1,000 acres. That's
Right.
why.
And
Okay.
non-disclosure agreements are a pain too.
Yes, because it starts looking like you are hiding something when you
Yes.
do it this way with a non-disclosure. When they brought it to the forefront, especially in South County here, and they found out it was going to be a huge place, people would list, had they said we need about 40, 50 acres. You have an area in the northern corridor in South Haven, 300 acres up there, that possibly a large ore and regional could fit.
Right.
And the other thing is that data centers, they don't need to be that big really, because remember our first phones, size of a shoe? How long will the data centers be rolled up before they can make something smaller that they can hold greater data and then become a white elephant?
Yeah, that is definitely a concern that I'm seeing, particularly in the environmental communities, is that technology evolves so that chips and tools tend to get smaller. They do more processing in a smaller footprint. And so what happens when you don't need 2,000 acres or however many thousands to do the processing or the compute that you need? There are also recent reports that some companies have overbuilt. There are reports that Meta is actually renting out some of its compute capacity that it has to other companies because it overshot in terms of its building. So we're already seeing that sort of gold rush for land and then sort of retracting back. And it's, I think as, we understand people's adoption and usage, not only of AI, but part of the data needs come from EVs, just your home, smart homes and all your smart appliances and all of that. So all of this creates a need for more compute and more data capacity. It's not just coming from AI, but understanding all of that, what type of facilities will be needed to harness that in the future. This is uncharted territory and we really don't know. And so I think there is some amount of speculation that's happening, and that's why they want the space, so that in the future, if they need to build, they can expand. But again, I think that if we start with, just winning hearts and minds, winning communities over, you start with the land that you have that's already appropriately zoned, and doing siting that works, and working in partnership with communities. And then when you have the need for expansion, to examine that, because that will also probably happen in parallel with the technology evolving so that you can do more with the footprints that you have.
From the standpoint of an unincorporated area, if you have a non-disclosure agreement, nobody within 30 square miles or whatever the size of your township is, people think you know and you don't know, and you get accused of things, and you have no idea what's going on, even though you request information, you don't have it. It's the distrust.
And you say win hearts and mind. It didn't work in Vietnam. It sure as heck didn't work in Afghanistan. Okay, so honesty would be the best policy.
Right.
NDA. George is talking in regards to, if you don't mind, George, his township, Union Township, was the place where they were going to put it. I'm on the council. I'm the president of the county council here, and I got brought in early. And when they excluded George, everybody was saying, well, George is getting kickbacks. He knows what's going on. He had no idea until I asked him, you bring him in, it's his township, bring him in. He's a trustee out there. So more than trying to win the hearts and minds, just be doggone honest, keep an NDA out, let people know this is what's coming. This is what it's going to take up. This is what it's going to look like. Otherwise, shroud of mystery.
And they need to have a marketing plan that gives the pluses and minuses so that both sides can have an equal representation. The other side, the opponents, I'm not saying the other side, but the opponents of the plan were very well organized, and the presenters were not. And when we had 1,000 people and they couldn't even get all the people into the building at the county presentation for the information,
Yeah,
it was clear that it was not appreciated.
Agreed. Definitely being honest is key. What I've heard from the industry is that the reason for the NDAs is they're trying to keep their strategy a secret from their competitors. But I think that there's a tendency to overdo it, and they have so much secrecy that, again, it breeds distrust, and it just creates a lot of fear and concern from people, especially when you don't have the right people at the table because of those NDAs. And it ends up excluding the people who need to be making the decisions, not their competitors. And their competitors, there's so much you can know now with AI and the tools that exist. It's hard to really keep anything a secret anyway. And there have been moves, I think, from Microsoft and others to just stop using NDAs, because anything that wants to be known can be known. By the time you file permits and file requests and do different visits and you track people's movements and where they've been, you know what's happening. So it's kind of obvious. So I think there's some movement in the right direction on the NDAs. But yes, definitely more open communication.
And getting back to the local people,
right.
People in the local community may have ideas that might be better than what they come up with from the outside. And sometimes it's not a bad idea to talk and get the groundswell of what's going on to begin with.
And to your point, there were people who came to me who knew as much as I did in a private meeting, and some who knew more items that was disclosed to me 2 weeks later. So you're right, people will find this information out. So it does look underhanded, so that's why it's gotta be upfront, honest with everybody, so.
I have one other question. So from the 4 different types of data centers, what percentage of each one approximately, just sort of gut feel, is the demand side of the equation for each of those types? Is there a little bit of a demand for like under 5 acres? Or is 80% of the demand for the 5 acres or under? Or is 80% of the demand for the hyperscalers?
Right now, most of the demand is for the hyperscalers.
Okay.
And again, it's because we're hearing that demand from the larger companies that can afford to build that. The Metas, the Amazons, the Googles, Microsofts, Oracles, etc. There are other companies, speculators that are building smaller data centers that are trying to sell capacity to those companies. But that's even a much harder sell because you don't know what their capacity needs are going to be. And by the time you finish your project, you don't know if they'll want what you built. So I think those companies getting into the business of development themselves, as opposed to buying what's on the market from speculator-built data centers, has changed the dynamics a bit, and that's why I think there's more focus on the larger tracts of land. But again, I think the industry is listening and learning, and they're realizing that you just can't force this, on people, and so there has to be more collaboration and more openness. And so we are starting to see more creative thinking about how can you meet the need for compute with other types of facilities that are more distributed and not trying to fit everything on one large tract of land. So there is creative thinking about that, but not sure how much of that matches the movement that's happening from those companies.
So
To
one last-
recognize,
And then we have questions.
Joe Haney has been trying to ask a question for a while, so.
I'm patient.
I had Joe up next, so that's okay.
Sorry. All right, so even a edge or regional location development would be a power drain. A friend of mine in Glen Park was out of power this weekend. There have been drains and incidents that have affected the power grid in Gary to the point that the mayor put up an emergency location at Gleason Park that had, charging stations for devices. Is the current power grid in Northern Lake County ready for something like this? Or will that have to be part of the quote-unquote sales pitch for any developer trying to put a brownfield data center in an area that has brownouts, basically?
So part of this process, NERC, along with about a dozen other communities, was part of a cohort with Department of Energy and a national coalition of energy partners to examine this. And what they shared is that the grid, because the infrastructure is aging or has aged, and also our capacity, our power needs have evolved. Again, I said you've got everything in your home is electronic now. You've got electric vehicles, electric fleets in terms of public transportation and transit. There are so many more power needs now than there were when that infrastructure was built. There is a need for upgrading of that infrastructure. That upgrading has costs. And that upgrading is also part of the reason why there might be some brownouts or strain. Also, there is climate change, whether it's man-made or not, can be debated, but it is changing. And so there are places that have longer hot days or more even severe cold days than they used to have. And that also puts more strain on power. And so basically what they're saying is that the power needs have evolved greatly over time. The grid, is not the way it was built. It needs to be upgraded. It needs more capacity. And so data centers add to that, but it's not exclusively the reason why there is more strain on the grid. There would be more strain on the grid anyway, just because of how we live our lives today. That is different than the way we did when it was built. So it's gonna have to evolve anyway, even if you didn't build another data center, it would still have to evolve. And there is gonna be some cost to that, and some of that cost is gonna be passed on to consumers. Again, whether you build another data center or not, it would have to evolve. So the question becomes, now when you're evaluating very complex tech infrastructure deals, whether it's a data center or some industrial park or something else, how do you factor power into that deal? And one of the things that we've seen is there are some of the builders will try to bring their own power. Some communities are looking at augmenting the grid with solar or other types of renewable energy. There's also talk about gas. Some facilities have supplemented their power with gas turbines, and that has caused some concern as well because of the environmental impact. So there's definitely an awareness that the power needs are a concern. And in parallel to that, there's an awareness that just the way we live our lives puts more strain on an old grid. Separate and apart from the type of project that a data center may present.
Let's call it a concern, more of an obstacle. I mean, talking to me, and you mentioned specifically for power drains like electric vehicles. We're about to double our electric bus fleet, like in a year. And that small increase in the power drain is actually a net benefit environmentally. And then you've got a data center that could potentially increase the cost of charging those vehicles and thus increasing the cost of transit in the area as an externality. So
Depending on how it's built. There are data centers that capture their energy and recycle it. So there are data centers in some communities that are using their heat that's generated to heat communities. They also add to the grid in some cases. So depending on what type of data center it is, depending on how it's built, it could be a benefit. It could be operate in a way that doesn't occur as a net drain, but it depends on how it's worked out with the builder and what the agreement is.
The one thing that they could do, and this is me gift wrapping something to you, stop the disincentivizing of sustainable power. Maybe if the industry itself worked on that to make it easier to create diverse types of power to reduce the strain, it may be an easier sale to the Union Township people of the world, that you're not going to have a drain, that you're not going to be bringing in a gas generator that's unlicensed and unapproved, which I think happened for a data center recently, and that's just going to be a lot of focused bad press in an area that's already still literally digging out from multiple power emergencies this year. Sorry for jumping on the soapbox. I did not mean the soapbox with any my desk, but it was there. I had to use it. So I'm just saying it's not an issue. It's an obstacle in Northern Lake County.
Thank you.
You're aware.
So Lee, if I may, obviously I'm against NDAs as a best practice for elected officials and power concern issues and whatnot. I'd kind of like to see, at least for my question, shift this back over to kind of your area expertise in the brownfield thing that we're talking about here. Kind of bring it back into focus here to best utilize your time and talents here. As we're talking about these different brownfield sites, we have several in LaPorte County, for example. Right now, you can't build restaurants on. They've covered some of the topsoil, some of these areas with topsoil, a foot or 2 or 3, whichever, however the temporary, if you will, remediation went. You can't build housing on it. You can't build restaurants on it. You have to dig up and remove a lot of that. When it comes to repurposing some of these brownfield sites, be it for a data center or whatever other use, right? I don't want to get bogged down on data centers, but however we're going to repurpose these to better use them for the future, for different industries, whatever it is, right? But specific to the brownfield sites themselves, what is the plan as far as, are you just building the data center or whatever it is on top of these sites with that 1 or 2 feet of cover? Or are you coming in beforehand, excavating out or remediating that to a point where it's no longer an issue, so that if, let's say a warehouse gets repurposed in 10, 20, 30, 40 years to indigent housing or whatever the case may be, right? You've got something viable there, 30, 40 years from now, instead of just having a warehouse on top of a brownfield site that you can only use for a very specific niche purpose. What are your thoughts on that?
So my research primarily focused on the non-environmental factors and strategies. So I can't go into detail about that, but I will say that the aim was to look at the types of redevelopments that would have the least disturbance, because if these properties have already gone through phase 1 and phase 2s, and maybe they've already been tested, that you want to get them shovel ready as quickly as possible, which means looking at appropriate use that would have minimal disturbance and be able to move forward with the build. So in cases where that means going within that allowable range of development, that's what we'd be looking for. And I think to some extent, some types of tech infrastructure builds can do that. Some of them may have to excavate because there's so much power and water and other infrastructure that has to be built. They would have to go deeper than that. So it depends on the type of build that occurs.
Thank you.
Yes.
Kathy.
Oh, I was just going to say to that, I think that that's something you could negotiate with IDEM, and you could also put it ahead of time in your, what you want out of an agreement. I'm thinking about, the facility could become the cap. I know in Michigan they've done a lot. They've drilled through a lot of really bad stuff just to get to bedrock, to put new supports under something, but keep the majority of the contamination enclosed. There's either technical things you can do or dig it up. It's all just, it's willingness to pay.
That'd be a good place to plug Partners for Clean Air, so if anybody wants to join that, and we meet this Friday, as a matter of fact.
I don't think that's insurmountable, but I think if you
Well,
wanted,
for the county.
yeah, if you wanted to encourage a developer to clean it up further prior to building, that could be a great thing to put in your expectations.
Thank you.
So just one other thing I'll share is that what I presented to the environmental committee is to consider, one, just as far as this tech infrastructure usage. Sorry, my power just went out. But to look at the tech infrastructure usage and to really assess suitability, to be proactive in attracting the right type of infrastructure or projects that are appropriate for the sites, and to really enhance local capacity in addressing the capacity gaps and understanding these types of builds and understanding the barriers and what would work there. So whether that's providing tools, like the Sensible tools in a more user-friendly way, providing training, or even development agreement templates that could be housed here that small communities could access to supplement their legal capacity. All of those resources provided centrally at NERC. NERC would help smaller communities not feel so overwhelmed by these larger projects.
Yeah, well, thank you. I certainly appreciate it. We'd love to have you come back again, but I know your fellowship is, how long will you be with us yet?
Officially till the end of the month, but we are competing for potential extension, so hopefully.
Well, we'd love to have you come back. And I want to thank you, Selena. Selena Green. Let's give her a hand. And I'm sure we all have more questions and could probably talk on this for a long time, but we have some other interesting and excellent items on the agenda. I had a message from the mayor of Portage. He will not be able to come because of the preemption of another matter, and he apologized profusely and asked to be on the agenda for the next meeting. So things like that happen, but that kind of gave us a little extra time to spend on the last topic. And we'll move right along to Christine Livingston from the Indiana Dunes. Welcome, Christine. It's good to see you.
Good to be here. Christine Livingston, President and CEO, Indiana Dunes Tourism. Been working in tourism about 17 years now, been CEO for a couple of years. I do not have a presentation today. I was just going to give a short overview of kind of what we're up to and how we see tourism changing in the region. So I have some notes. What makes someone choose a place? We often talk about jobs, housing, transportation, parks, and all those things matter, but people don't choose places because of one amenity. They choose a place because of how those things come together and create a community that they see themselves in. Quality of life isn't just something that we build, it's something we experience. The Indiana Dunes National Park, the State Park, they draw over 4 million visitors a year, generating over $240 million in visitor spending. That's not a small tourism story. It's a regional economic engine, and it's one piece of a much larger conversation about why people choose to live, work, and invest here. Housing, transportation, workforce, parks, tourism, economic development, and philanthropy are all connected. That's why tourism has evolved. We don't simply market a destination anymore. Tourism helps communities tell their story, strengthen quality of place, and support economic competitiveness. When you're reading notes from your phone, sometimes your thumb hits the wrong button and you have to just do a pause to get back to where you were. And I apologize, I'm reading, but I wanted to make sure I got all these points in. So residents are our first ambassadors. When people experience and appreciate where they live, they become the advocate for the communities. People protect and invest in places that they feel connected to. And we have many examples in our region. Indiana Dunes National Park, Indiana Dunes State Park, our county parks, open space, vibrant downtown communities, local businesses, the Marquette Greenway, our indigenous cultural trail, outdoor recreation opportunities. I could go on and on about all the amenities in our region. Quality of place is no longer simply a tourism conversation. It's become one of our region's greatest competitive advantages. And we're exploring how we tourism can play a more intentional role in introducing executives, site selectors, prospective employers, future residents. We're working with partners like One Region, the Forum, Regional Development Authority, NERC, NICD, municipalities, the Indiana Dunes National Park and State Parks, our community foundations, private sector. And I'm not going to go into all the different projects that we're working on as it relates to these different organizations, but really what I'm trying to do is identify opportunities where tourism can really add value and can really bring something meaningful to the conversation within our regional strategies. Attracting investment and talent requires more than infrastructure. It requires places people choose. Companies recruit the talent chooses the places. So we're continuing to strengthen Porter County's quality of place through tourism placemaking initiatives, supporting trail connectivity. We've been working with Mitch and Ty on the Marquette Greenway and incorporating some regional branding into the Greenway, working in tandem with the parks. We want to continue sustainably promoting both national park and state parks as the defining regional assets. Not just regional assets, I would say the defining assets of our state. We are, the Indiana Dunes, the #1 destination in the state of Indiana. So this is the thing that people come here to see and do. We are going to be advancing Sand and Steel as a shared regional story that connects, not replaces, but connects local identities across Lake Porter and LaPorte counties, working on a scenic byway along Route 12. And George, I think this might have been part of why you thought this might be an appropriate place for me to talk about this, is because we are working on connecting our region through regional branding. The Sand and Steel is one such tagline where we feel like we can tell the story from Illinois to Michigan about what connects all of us, tell those individual stories, but also with the tagline that kind of connects and creates one continuous experience. So we're working with RDA and NERC, NICD on moving that initiative forward. More to come on that. We're also continuing to develop our Indigenous Cultural Trail in partnership with tribal nations. We're strengthening collaboration with One Region, Purdue, putting together programs that really invite and welcome people to our area, not just visitors, but people who might end up living here, tech execs. There's ways that we can roll out the red carpet to these different groups in a way that we really currently aren't taking the time to do. So our goal isn't simply to bring people here, it's to create a region that they're excited to return to, proud to call home, and confident to invest in. Tourism introduces people to a place. Quality of place convinces them to stay. Economic development gives them a reason to build their future here. Those aren't separate conversations anymore, they're part of one regional strategy. And what Indiana Dunes Tourism is doing is trying to position ourselves with our partners, Phil and Jack and Laporte, but also regional organizations that are working on strategies such as this to see where we can add value and help tell the story of our region in a more compelling way, help create a regional identity, and get out of the shadow of Chicago with our own story. So I could go on, but I think you have a very packed agenda today, and I appreciate the opportunity. I'm happy to come back and share more about individual initiatives that we have going on. George just wanted me to give a little overview of what we're about and how we kind of shifted our direction. It's a really fun time to be in tourism because we're not just about heads and beds anymore. We're about creating place, and we're about working with our regional partners to do that in a meaningful way. So, how do you, George?
I have a
Yes.
question. Did you ever thought about like water transportation and ferry between downtown Chicago and the Indiana Dunes? Like we have like a 7 month, which like we can have any sort of transportation using the waterway. So did you ever thought about that? Like,
are you talking like a water taxi or like
water
like
taxi or ferry or something like that?
Or a tour like they have for the architectural tour in Chicago along the shoreline.
Yeah, they have a little bit of that going on in Michigan City. And then we've also had a conversation about cruises. You know, they do have cruises up the Great Lakes and we don't have a stop here, so that's part of a conversation we're with the forum right now. We actually did a deep dive on that right before COVID, and then COVID happened and everything in that landscape changed. We had some things that were in the works working with Ian at the port and things that he had been helping us put together from his experience in Chicago when they were running cruise ships through Chicago, which they still do. So that's one opportunity, but there are a lot of challenges with that. Our port is not really set up for that, and our communities also are not really set up for that. So we're still working out whether or not it makes a lot of sense for us to put a lot of energy into capturing that audience that essentially comes into the community for a very short time and then jumps back on a boat and goes somewhere else. So,
which in a segue to that, is there any idea within the park or near the park for overnight stay? So those people can come here, maybe spend 2 days at the park.
that's why I say we're not really set up for that yet. You know,
Okay.
we're working toward that. Obviously, having and we have, of course, we have wonderful accommodations and individual businesses who have accommodations. So there are opportunities to do that. The connections just aren't there, and I think this is a really important part of what we are doing with Mitch is connecting things. This is what you do every day. It's just making those connections, connecting the dots. So we had Paul from Labovitz from National Park was superintendent at the time, and he was very driven to get this done and trying to figure out how we connect the dots and working with the port to make this happen. But really, logistically, it's difficult still, especially with our
I
port.
think we need Disney World thoughts to help with the traffic jams that occurred during the summer because
We're working on that, and the park is working on that. And these are the things I feel like are really important for us to have the good news is the visitors are here.
And that's why we need to bring the region into this thing.
Exactly.
Bigger
The good news is the visitors are here. Our challenge is not bringing visitors here. Our challenge is doing what you guys are talking about today. And that presentation was so good, what we just heard. Everything that you're working on. I mean, I was born and raised here, and the brownfields are such an opportunity for us, a tremendous opportunity for us, and that we're not able to shift some of this interest in our area to those spaces. I'm really personally grateful for what you're doing and how RDA is really focusing their attention on this right now, because I think it's going to be a game changer for us. So I don't know if I answered your question. As far as water tours, I know Michigan City's doing it. Our season is very short. There are a lot of logistical issues getting people on and off boats. We're not really set up for it yet, but I do believe that it is in conversation stages and that we'll get there eventually. There is a huge demand for touring the Great Lakes because a lot of people don't want to travel internationally anymore. They just want to stay at home, and there are a lot of good stops there. So that's something we're working toward, but not there quite yet.
Thank you.
Real quick, a couple things. First of all, we need to re-engage about Cycle 219. We've got a large deployment that is going to be happening in Hamlin Lighting at next month. We need to talk about crossing the county line when it comes to that, because we are getting conversation all the time about it. We don't have the capacity right now when it comes to going to Dune Park for Nicky, we are focusing on Miller and Gateway.
I think you're gonna have to probably have a 3-hour lunch to talk about all the things we have to talk about. So I
Probably.
think you and I just need to do like a one-up and get through our list, because we have a lot of things I think that we are working on.
I know.
Yeah.
And then to add to that, we do a tour of holiday lights in the wintertime, obviously. We're looking at maybe, again, crossing the county line for our event this year. So we need to add that to our agenda.
Yes.
Potentially, co-hosting that or doing some kind of collaboration
Yes.
to bring Ogden Dunes and Northern Portage into that, because
Yes.
it got a lot more popular last year
Yeah.
than it had been in the past. And
No,
my
I
thought is-
crossing county, I mean, to your point, crossing county line, no one's thinking about Porter Lake, Elmore counties. They're thinking about the Indiana Dunes region.
Right.
They're thinking about
That's how we want
Sand
to.
and
That's how we
Steel.
want to look at it.
I feel so strongly that that's our true north. And so I know that you and I need to get together and talk through some of these things, but even little things like, I'm not going to get into all this. We have we need to get Jacob here, but little things like our coffee trail, our art and culture trail, those are all Porter County specific right now, but recently we expanded our coffee trail into Lake County, working with our partners. And these are really good products. We don't all need to be reinventing the wheel in each little private Idaho. We need to be working together collaboratively to, if it's working, let's just share it. If it's, and so the art and culture trail we're working on right now, the Sand and Steel Art and Culture Trail just launched in Valparaiso with our Sand and Steel Art Festival. And it's been a tremendous success, very well received by all the communities. And we're looking forward to expanding that out into our other counties, baby steps. Start here, demonstrate success, keep going. And you guys have successes in Lynn County too that we're working with Phil and Nikki on bringing over to Porter County. And this is one of the things that I've been doing really for the past couple of years is let's not work in silos, let's work together. We can do a lot more together. Leverage our resources that way.
Right.
Thank you. And I'm sorry I can't stay for the whole meeting. I have another meeting I need to go.
And one last thing, you have lots of videos that are available to help with the tourism also.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe you could mention where they can find those.
Yeah, we have a very robust, I apologize. I was going to bring bags for everyone today. Didn't know exactly how many people were here.
Come back again and.
Yeah, I would love to come back. Honestly, I would love to come back, get a count, and do some deep dive on some of these projects that we're working on. But our YouTube channel, we have we have a really great in-house videographer, so we have a lot of content that most destinations don't have. So it's just Indiana Dunes on YouTube. But the thing that's really great about our channel is we have an ambassador program where we use it with our hoteliers and people who are forward-facing for visitors and even locals to talk about the Indiana Dunes. The Indiana Dunes are complicated. It's a national park. It surrounds a state park. It's got a lot of local parks, and it's a complicated place to really fully appreciate. So we have this ambassador series that helps educate people who are on the front lines about how to do the Indiana Dunes, because it's actually not that straightforward. You don't go to the entrance, go in, do the day, go home. There's so much complexity to it, and so that's why we have our Discovery Trail, where we have all these assets that we've linked together. It's a non-linear trail because that's the Indiana Dunes. It's a non-linear place to visit. There's so many things to do. So the videos really help us tell that story. We've got ranger videos, and so help you understand how to do the dunes for a few hours, for 2 days. Obviously, we want people to stick around. So I would love to come back and maybe even do a video that I could share some of this with you if you'd be willing to have me whenever it fits into your schedule, and then I can maybe demonstrate some of these visually. I wasn't sure exactly what you wanted today, so that's just an overview of where we're headed, but I'm happy to come back and dig in on some of this.
Well, we want to thank you very much for your presentation. Glad to have you here, and we'd love to see you again.
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
And next on the agenda is Northwest Indiana 2050 Plus MTP Land Use and Housing Update by Eman Ibrahim, Planning Manager, and this is an informational presentation.
Good morning, everyone. We are in the process of updating our NWI 2050 Plus. We are required, like every 3-4 years, to update our regional plan, which include multiple topics, from transportation, transit, trail, land use, housing, environment, demographics. So we are in the process in doing that. And last presentation, last meeting, we presented multiple presentation about collecting data and the regional profile, and we are putting a regional profile report together. It's very much done, and it should be posted online by next week. And once we get the link, we're going to share it with you so everyone can look at the data, review it, as we're doing that now also in different public meetings, different events also. The county fairs are coming, LaPorte and County, and we will be there also trying to get feedback from people. So we are in this process now. So we are in the second task. After we collected all the data, now we try to do some analysis and assessment to this data, and also we are planning to have stakeholder meetings and meeting with the planners, and that should be by the end of July. So we're very much going here on the schedule. But today I'm focusing on the land use and housing. And I know this is like so crowded and maybe you cannot read it, but like what we did here is we got we have the goals already from NWR 2050 plan that was completed like a few years ago. And so it was a very strong goals. We had a more detailed housing and land use section. So we did a lot of recommendations out of that, so we don't need like to reinvent the wheels. Of course, we are open to have like more goals and strategies during the update of the 2050 plus. But what we did here is we are required to have a performance measure. So we measure the success or how we meet the goals that we are recommending or the strategies. So we are required by the Federal Transportation Department to do that. So we have some performance measures coming from them, and also we have our own performance measures that came from the 2050 plan. So here I'm not gonna read everything, but just to give you an example. The first one, to support transportation infrastructure. And of course, support the development of walkable town centers or like downtown areas specifically. So we have a performance measure saying, like to look at the employment in main centers. Are we gaining more people to work in these main centers, or the population is increasing or is going less? So in this one specifically, we found out that like some communities, which is like Winfield, for example, they are increased by over 200% in the last 10 years. We have also Lake Station, South LaPorte, Monster. But it was noted also that some of the large communities lost population in the downtown area. And that's something we're going to discuss later when we meet with the planners to see if they have any plans for that, making sure that we got the right data. We got the data mostly from the census data up to 2025. So the same employment also. We have more employment significant in South Hammond, Miller, and the Etna area, the neighborhood in Hammond, Hillsville, and also South LaPorte City. So they got actually more people and more employment in LaPorte. Lake Station also, they got people and employment. East Chicago and Griffith. And of course, I'm going to show that in a graph. But like this, like information, we try to collect it, but we have to discuss it with the planners or the leaders to get some feedback about these results. We have other thing also, a goal that focusing more in how to identify priority and fill area. So we look at the housing vacancies by municipalities, because how we would like to see, that we have a very high vacancy rate, do we have a low, so why we have a housing vacancy rate that high, and what's the problem? What we need to do with this housing? Is that like marketing issue? Is that like housing in a bad conditions? Or so that's why when we collect the data, we try to understand why they have these numbers. So we looked also at the vacancies within the area, but most of the vacancies was in LaPorte County, and specifically Michigan City and the vacation towns, like the Long Beach and the other small towns that they have vacation homes. Of course, it's not like it's a seasonal, and it's not like it's mostly vacant here. We also, the other recommendation is to increase the housing density, and we have a recommendation in the in WI 2050 plus to have a density of 4 to 5 units per acre. Currently, we have about 2 units per acre, so this is still like a very low density, and we are hoping, and we also looked at the data in the last 10 years, and we see if there is increase in the density or we're still at 2 units per acre. So I don't want to go over all of that, but like it's a lot of data. Also the middle housing, which is attached to single family homes, like the 2 units up to 5 units, like duplexes, townhomes, triplexes and fourplexes. This is what we're looking for. We need to increase that because people like that than having apartment. So they like single family homes on the small lots. Now that's what we recommend. If you want to increase the density, like you still can have a single family homes, but you have to have it in a small lots. Like here, the village in Burns Harbor, that's what it's a very good example. It's a single family homes. But it has the high density up to 6 to 8 units per acre. So that's what we're looking for in the future. So we looked into this data and to track the middle housing. We are hoping to have about 20% of the middle housing, the duplexes and townhomes, and the 35% of single family homes, but in the small lots. And that's what we are tracking here to make sure that we are going towards this target or not. Like actually we have LaPorte County is one of the highest housing permits for middle housing. And that's like in a very good condition. We have the regional average about 15%. So, and that's something also we will discuss it with the communities to see where they are with the middle housing. We also look at the housing stocks, the demand and the supply. And I presented that last time, but like there is a significant shortage in some sort of the housing for people making like between like 50,000 and 100,000. There is plenty, but people making over 100,000, they don't have enough, so they have to look at different alternatives. We also look at the people that paying more than 30% in mortgage of their income, and that's also like a burden to their income to pay that much, over 30%. I'm going to show you a graph later showing where we are. And also we have a target of population increase by the 2050. We are almost close to 800,000 in the region here, but like we're hoping by 2050 to become like 900,000, so increase by almost 100,000 people in the next 24 years. And so to do that, like we have to increase by 0.55% every year, or an average, and that's something we track also. So that's very much the results of our analysis. I'm showing some of the maps here, like the one on the right, the population growth rate, and it's showing in 2024, for example, we increased by about 5%, 0.5%. 25.3%. So I see that it's improving. If we continue like that, like we might meet the goals by 2050. Housing increases was really high in Porter County. We're looking for 4% increase yearly for the region, but like Porter County was 6%, Lake County 3%, LaPorte County was need to increase their housing number. So that's like I mentioned again, we have to discuss it. The main center population increased. Here we have, and I talked about that, and shown here the top like 25 community, the one on the left, that really have significant increase, and I mentioned that before, downtown Winfield, Miller, Etna, and the chart is showing here the increase. The surprises was in the population loss in some of the main neighborhoods like Portage, the Marina area, it's not the whole Portage. The Marina area lost some population, but hopefully now with the transit-oriented development plan and the Portage plan, and now they are working in updating and have a new comprehensive plan. So they have plans actually for the Marina area, and hopefully that will attract more people because it's by the train station. So that's showing also Valparaiso, like the downtown area, lost some people also. And that will be a question to them because we have the university area increased population, but the downtown lost some. And so on. So we're gonna have all the data. I don't have to go to every single one, but like once you're gonna have the report next week, you can look, it's about over 150 pages, so we have data for all topics, and you can see the charts and graphics and everything. One of the things which I talked about, the performance measure, the percent of household burdened by housing costs that they pay 30% or more of their income in mortgage. We are actually reasonable compared to the state. The state average is over 26% pay 30 or more of their income. But like if you look at Lake Porter and LaPorte, we're still in a reasonable. We wanted to reduce it, of course, but like when you compare to the state average, we're still in a good shape. The issue we have it for the renters because that they pay more than 30%. And on average, we have over 50% or almost 50% of the renters pay over 30% of their income in rent. And that's like an issue that like we need to discuss it later, and we're gonna have some strategies discuss that. And that's, so that what we do here is a housing price to income ratio, and that's a common measure that we do here to measure the spending on housing. Also, we have a lack of multi-family development in Northwest Indiana, and that's at their little available inventory, and that's make the rent high because we don't have enough supply. So if we have enough supply of apartment or multi-family, that's so the competition will be less, and the rent could go down. So initially, like we make like some recommended strategies here based on some of what we discussed, but like we will have more once we have a meeting with the stakeholders and also get the feedback from the public about the data and meeting with the planners. That's all feedback that gonna form even better strategies, but as a draft now or some like initial ideas, achieving the population and housing growth target, that's dependent boosting population employment in urban areas. The strategy could be emphasize on housing affordability, more development near transit hub, and of course specialized workforce training. So if we need like a specific workforce within your community and you need to attract more people to that, of course you can have it in main urban centers and you have more training so you can attract people for the job needs. Concerning the high vacancy rates in housing, the strategies will depend on whether the problem is a local oversupply of housing. Sometimes communities are like that, or ineffective property marketing. So they don't have a good marketing, that's why they have a high vacancy. Or they have so many homes in a bad conditions that they need to improvement or demolished or whatever. So it's still counting as housing and vacancy, but it's not really can be, like sold or something. So that's something, so we got this from the census data, but we need to hear also from the communities about when we show them the vacancies and what type, so we will hear from them more about that. Addressing the lack of missing of middle housing, and that's again, we propose here to modify the local regulations or ordinance, adjusting financial tools to attract the builders to build more middle housing, and of course all the updated design standards. And also some people, they remove actually the parking mandates in this area, or they make it more easy in their requirement. And of course reducing minimum lot size. So that's like some initial ideas for strategies that we could consider. So the next steps here, we're inviting the planners, and that's coming in within the 2 weeks. And if anyone interested here in the committee to come to this meeting, just let me know. I will share the invite with you once we set the date. But that's what we're looking to get a feedback from them, specifically about the regional data and the local data that we collected. We wanted to hear from them about that, and also discuss all the housing demand. So we have now all the numbers of housing stock for each community and what they are lacking, what income range they should consider if they are lacking housing that meets certain income category. So, and that's also, and if they have any housing plans in the future that we should consider it in our plan. Of course, planning for the needed infrastructure, support walking and biking. That's also all their plans or needs regarding the non-motorized. Identifying also key arterial roadways, if there is any improvement happening, if any additional roads or new roads coming. So we have like a list of things that we're gonna discuss it with the planners. And of course, by next meeting, we will have even better results and better recommendations when we have like a more clear picture about what the community and how they meet the regional goals. That's it. Any questions? Yes.
One of the hard part would be for those who make under $25,000 and under for housing for them.
That's they get assistance from the government. Yeah, that's really, they cannot even have a new construction that meet this income. So that's and most of them are rented, by the way. It's not like they own houses. They are renters and they get assistance from the government. The issue with the people making 50,000 around to 75,000, that's people also, they don't have enough housing in some communities, not all the communities.
I grew up in the east side of Gary, Emerson area, and smaller homes with smaller lots, bigger density. Talking about putting X amount of numbers of houses in an acre. And a lot of the homes in my old neighborhood are in disrepair, and the cost to refurbish them to have somebody take over them would probably be more than a modular double wide. People say, "Oh, I live in one on my farm." Okay, they're pretty nice. So something like that maybe could be looked into, so that the ownership of a home in a community like that, for those who make minimal amount, is looking at about maybe $60,000 for a smaller house like that, modular, you go over a basement that's already existing, and therefore give them more room by going down as opposed to up. And they can build a room or two down there, because that's what we did. 6 of us in 2 bedrooms, 6 kids in 2 bedrooms doesn't equate, okay? So we had rooms downstairs, so that was something that was looking at that.
I think they're doing that now in Gary, and they actually selling this old, like, bad condition houses to people. They take it very cheap, and then they remodel it and do some work. And I think they sell it around 100,000.
Well, the modular cost you 60.
No, but like I mean to make a payment, you know, a mortgage would be less. So they could pay what? 1,000? Yeah, for the mortgage. So, but like I mean, it's helping a lot of the young people and couples, and you know, they want to start up homes. They do that now, but like I mean, Gary gets like a lot of assistance, federal assistance, and very specifically, but they have demolished some area actually completely, and they turn it to grass because they said they cannot maintain all these roads if nobody living in this area. So they are working on that. I know that.
Okay. Well, thank you, man. And if there are any more questions, we can hold until afterwards, but we're running kind of late, and I want to thank the Park Board for your patience. And if we could have you make a presentation, but in the meantime, I had a message from an owner of a golf course and also from Portage about golf courses. So just to plant the seed, a number of high school coaches as well are concerned about the availability, especially if the major project in Hammond happens and another golf course that disappears. It's something to be included in our thoughts for the future as to what are we planning on those areas too. And there are some opportunities. Portage has mentioned some things in particular that they will be interested in, and I'd be happy to talk to you gentlemen about that later. Anyway, thank you, man. Appreciate it. Okay, so is it Jake, Bob, or who's up? Do you need some?
Do you have a PowerPoint?
No.
Oh, okay.
We'll do a PowerPoint with this one. Good morning, everybody. So my name is Jake McElwain with Portage County Parks. I'm the superintendent. So really, this is less of a presentation, more of an announcement. So over the last probably a year and a half, 2 years or so, we sat down as a committee and really looked for what were the big key components to drive Portage County Parks forward in the next big things that we accomplish and some of our weaknesses. And in those discussions, we pointed out that one of the biggest things we're missing is a large nature and event center at Sunset Hill Farm County Park. That is our flagship park, just north of Balboa. And the second one is a park in South Portage County, which is basically the recreation test. There's not a lot of parkland down there. And so we've identified those two big key component projects, and here recently, within the last just few months, we started our capital campaign in an attempt to raise money for those projects. So I believe Mr. Durant's passed out a kind of a packet to some people out there and kind of goes over a little bit about what we're looking to build. So the first big project we're looking at is the Nature Event Center. I guess I shouldn't say first project, we're going to try to do them at the same time. It is the Nature Event Center at Sunset Hill Farm. So it's going to be a large-scale building out there that is meant for year-round educational program, to be a visitor center for people to visit our parks and visit Portage County, and as well as to expand our events. for rentals, weddings, and things of that nature. One of our biggest issues we are running into now is some of our programs, especially the popular programs, have hit capacity to the point where we have hundreds of kids on wait lists for programs and we can't get into programs simply because we do not have the space to house them. The big one being our Camp Fun Set program, which currently has almost 900 kids in it over the course of the 8 weeks, and we've still got several hundred on our wait list. And the biggest issue we're running with that one is we just simply can't house any more kids. So this is one of the goals that is going to help address that problem, as well as field trips, school programs, nature programs as well. They're all growing vastly in popularity. And over the last 3 years, we've had record visitation every year. So the need for more recreational spaces is certainly trending upward.
Yeah, those of you who have the packet, you see the first page inside the packet. If you've never been to Sunset Hill Park in Porter County, you have to get to Sunset Hill. How many acres is it here?
238.
238 acres. It's an enormous park that is beloved by the community. And when you go to Sunset Hill, the first thing that you notice is it still has a farming vibe to it. Its origins as a massive farm that initially was going to be granted to Purdue, but Purdue wasn't interested. They didn't know what to do with it. So they came to Porter County and asked us if we were interested in that land. Of course we were. We didn't even have a parks department in the 1980s. So we created a Porter County Parks Department, and it is without question the crown jewel of our parks. And as Jake said, when you enter into that park, you see here the rendering of what the Nature and Event Center will look like. It is perfect for the setting of Sunset Hill as a barn motif, so to speak. But the purposes of the Nature and Event Center hit on multiple components. Like Jake said, when it comes to education and programming, it will allow us to meet the need of our community. I mean, we really don't enjoy telling hundreds of Porter County people that we cannot accommodate them or their kids for the programs that we have. So this would be a year-round educational facility, but when it comes to the sustainability of our parks, and Councilman Andy here could speak to this as well, Porter County is one of only 2 counties in the entire state that doesn't have a direct line item funding for our park system. And what we've been able to achieve with our parks, despite of that, is pretty incredible. But this gives us a self-sustaining funding component where it's not just a year-round nature and event center that increases our capacity to educate our children as they come there and we grow our programs that we simply don't have the space for now. But it becomes an event center as well that can hold 300 to 400 people. So this would become a self-sustaining revenue generator for our parks to help us be able to sustain those programs going forward, and then to help us build the South County Park that we also have in mind as well. So it's beautiful, it'll be unique. We have a lack of event centers in Porter County. I don't know what LaPorte County and Lake County look like, but when you start looking for a place to have an event in Porter County, there aren't a lot of event centers. So we will have no problem renting this event center out for any number of things, from graduation parties to weddings to you have different organizations that want to have a conference. It will be rented out all the time and then generate the revenue for the parks to help all the programs and the other parks that we have as well. So it's on that, if you want to know what it looks like, it's on that very first page, and it is going to be absolutely beautiful.
So then on to the second big project we're working on is the park in South County. So basically in Porter County, once you hit south of 30, the number of parks and parkland, park acreage really drops significantly. And we've been working on this one for 14, 15 years. I think it's been in the works. So we really wanted to pick the mantle up with this one, and the biggest kind of issues that we noticed down there when talking with the community leaders and community organizations down there is a lack of space for not only outdoor recreation, like trails, fishing, picnicking, things like that, but it was a real lack of sports areas, sports facilities and amenities and things like that. Whereas the schools are starting to lose the ability to house a lot of these programs due to their growth and due to the expansion and increase in population. and the popularity of travel leagues and things of that nature. So this one, on the back of that, kind of talks about some of the key features, whereas that one is really going to be more of a very active park as opposed to our traditional passive parks like we have everywhere else. And to really fit that need of the growing demand for travel leagues, school sports, and clubs and things of that nature. As well as some of the kind of the park desert issues we run into down there, like lack of trails, safe walking trails and things of that nature.
Yeah, we do not have a county park south of Highway 30 to Porter County. Well, I take it back. We got Dunn's Bridge.
We have Dunn's Bridge.
We got a bridge that crosses the Kankakee River, so I wouldn't call it a park, but
it's hard to count. But
it'd be a park for the whole county, of course, and beyond. But for South County, they just don't have a large park where they can go for recreation, take the dog for a walk, go play pickleball. And it certainly wouldn't only provide that for the whole community, just for the health and well-being of the community, but it would go to support our schools and the community down there when it comes to these sporting events. But once again, when it comes to a revenue generator, not just for our parks, but for our county as well. My daughter played travel soccer and we went to Lake County all the time because Porter County simply doesn't have the facilities to keep families here to be able to run those type of travel programs. And we took our dollars to Lake County and everywhere else. And this would not only allow Porter County families to stay in Porter County with those programs and with their kids, but would be drawing outside county people to Porter County and their investment dollars here. So we've been talking about this for over a decade. And we're finally at the point where the combination of the Nature and Event Center at Sunset Hill to provide all the benefits that would, with actually moving forward on developing the South County Park to provide all of this for South County especially, but for the whole county as a whole, but to also be able to accommodate all of those people who want to stay in the county for these types of activities, but they have nowhere to do it. So we're excited about both of these projects. We wanted to share all the details with you because we're getting in front of everybody that we can, so we can explain where we want to go with these two projects, the path that we're on in terms of our capital campaign committee raising dollars right now. But when it comes to NERC and the far reach that you have, we would love to get in front of the whole NERC board to be able to present these two projects so everybody is aware of what our vision is. But of course, anytime we can gain support in terms of dollars or any types of support to help us move these in collaboration with our county government, our county council and county commissioners, we've presented to both. They're very excited about the vision and where we want to take the Porter County Parks even further going forward. We just need to lay the runway to launch.
I have a couple of thoughts. One, Union Township has about 700 acres that might fit that bill under south of 30, right where the Willow Creek is going to hit 30. We also have a meeting of all the township trustees, which includes all 12 townships. Happens to be this Thursday, but we're booked on that agenda. But it might be a good place to present and get ideas from the people in those townships, at least plant the seed or maybe even meet with the township trustees meetings to provide that information to each individual township because they know where the pieces of property might be. So anyway, very good. I appreciate any other comments. Joe?
So I have a question. Bob, you had mentioned that Porter County is one of two counties that doesn't have a line item. What's the history behind that? Because I know when I sat on the master plan update, there was a survey done by Porter County residents, and Porter County residents were overwhelmingly, from what I remember, supportive of the park system and willing to help fund the park system, but yet we don't have a line item yet. So not to put pressure on my friend over here, that's why I frame it to you guys.
I can answer that.
Okay, I can.
6 words. Okay?
Yes.
It's something that I've been working on since I became president of the council 2 years ago. Kick the can down the road. If we just leave it alone, it'll look what a great job they're doing without any funding. My question to you, gentlemen, and I know you're going to say anything. If I could drum up support for a line item before I leave, what would you need? What would be a realistic number?
Realistic number, we have to go back and
I think to be responsible to your question, sitting down to do the math on that, if we had support from the county council for that, and I know the county council juggles a lot when it comes to balancing all things. One, we have the lowest local income tax.
We are the lowest out of 92 counties, nobody's even close.
There's no doubt, and we value that, but we also have SEA 1 from the state that is changing all kinds of funding formulas when it comes to property tax and the different agencies in our county. So I know you guys are juggling a lot. However, if we had a direct line item of financial support that we could depend on and was steady, that we could plan and build from, that would greatly enhance what we're doing. To give you the most responsible answer, I think we'd have to sit down and do that math to land in a responsible place rather than just throwing a number out, unless you had something more specific.
I can give a little bit more detail because I talked to kind of the budget committee about it, working with Ryan and Bob. For us, with the nature of our budget and our operation, if we could get into a point where we could get a dedicated, $250,000, $300,000 a year, that makes a world of difference for our.
That was the number I had circled, 250,000. Now, if you can get something in writing to me before the next council meeting this in July, I will give you my word of honor. It will be brought up as discussion for other items, so that we may start looking at this. We keep talking about growth regionally and within Porter County, but yet nobody wants to shell out the bucks for whatever reason. We'll raise taxes. Folks, in order to get something, you're going to have to pay to get it, okay? And it depends on how you, not necessarily sell it, but approach it to the other council members and the community as a whole. This is what you're getting for your dollar, okay? Something that's going to affect you and your children and their children down the road and so on. So if you gentlemen can come up with something between now and then, I give you my word of honor, I will bring it up at the next council meeting.
Well,
so we can look into it.
We would greatly appreciate that. And I'll say this as well, as a history teacher, context and history obviously matters.
Yes.
And not only is our Porter County Parks pretty infant as 45-year-old park system, it's not very old, but we currently have a level of, on the board and as our superintendent and our staff, we have a level of professionalism that hasn't always been in place. And you don't want to invest in something where you don't know for sure that the dollars are going to be well spent and you're going to generate a great return. We haven't always had that faith in the park system. We do now. We got a great staff, a great superintendent, a high-functioning Porter County Park Board working with a very active Porter County Park Foundation. We've got the faith now that dollars spent in the parks are going to be dollars well spent.
Oh, you don't have to sell me. I'm big on that because I would love to see you guys be self-generating. And I think the availability for that to happen is very real. I've sat and talked with you and some of the things that we have talked about in regards to bringing people out this way. And also you've got a segue from Christine to let them know that the north end has a lot to offer, but so does the south end. Down there, we're basically, I consider us a sleeping giant. So let's wake them up.
Right. And how much involvement has the park board had with the comprehensive plan that Porter County is working on? And where do you fit in relationship to that? You're going a step further, once we get the Porter County comprehensive plan, I think all the unincorporated areas would be wise to consider a master plan for their areas so that we have prior planning in the future. And that's one thing that I would like to do starting in Union Township, since I have something to do with that. But I'd like to tie in, and I know we are working together on the one little park that we have. So we'll be meeting in a couple of weeks. But I think we need to spread it out and have the organization, kind of visit with the unincorporated areas.
It's a great point. Joe was involved in our previous Porter County Parks Master Plan, which was extensive and incredibly detailed. It's fantastic. We are currently updating that master plan, but to your point, it would be a great idea to sit down at the table with the county as a whole to see how our master plans can work.
Because so often the unincorporated areas have been forgotten in Porter County.
Yeah, sounds good.
If it wasn't for the foundation and the volunteerism, the park system right now exists by accident, and by volunteers like Dr. McAfee and Olga and, you know, everybody else. And for us not to recognize that the quality of life depends on the park system, I think we're fooling ourselves. My last comment.
Gentlemen, thank you for, any other questions before?
Just one more.
Dr. McAfee?
I sit in the foundation bar for meeting. I was born in 1949 in Valpo had 5,000 people. Porter County was just exploded. Northwest Indiana was exploded here. And when I was a kid, the whole county was a park. You could go anywhere. Farmers didn't care. Like fishing, Salt Creek, they didn't care if we walked through the county. Now there's so much growth that there's not really land left in Porter County for families and kids to go through. So that's why I'm so incredibly excited about our plan for the parks, because we need to grow with the parks.
Well, we appreciate the opportunity of sharing some of what we have in store for our parks with you. We'd love to get on the agenda with a full NERC board to share that with them as well and hear their feedback and expertise and move these projects forward.
I'll be talking to Austin Bonta, who's the current chairman, and see if we can make that happen. But he was precluded from being here today, so that would have been.
I'll see him at Nativity Fest, so
I'm sure he will. Anyway, thank you, gentlemen.
You're
We
welcome.
really appreciate it. And if anything open to the public for comment, they're hearing none. Is there any further comment? Any objection to adjourning?
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
We're out of here.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.